Do you want to know what's going on with Trump's new administration, but you don't want to have to follow it? I got you. I read the news so you don't have to, and I summarize it in 5 minutes or less every day. Follow me to get it in your feed. The Trump transition continues at warp speed, with Donald Trump's new picks for NATO ambassador, education secretary, and lead for the Office of Management and Budget, the last of which essentially oversees the actual operations of the entire executive branch, as well as how the president's plans are implemented. In charge of all of that will be Russ Vought, who held the same position during Trump's first term, and in the interim was a leading architect of Project 2025. Which Donald Trump has never heard of course. He is a promoter of Christian nationalism and has called for an army of right-wing activists with a biblical worldview to work in the next Republican administration. And that's what you're going to get. In his new role as head of the OMB, he is expected to advance his plan to implement Schedule F, which would reclassify career civil servants, the people who actually make the government work, as political appointees, giving the president power to hire and fire anyone he wants. In reality, this likely means that up to tens of thousands of nonpartisan government staff could be replaced with people who may or may not have the proper experience for the role, but who have been ideologically screened for agreement with MAGA. Donald's pick for Secretary of Education will be his old friend Linda McMahon, former head of WWE and chair of the America First Policy Institute, which is a think tank that she launched in 2021 alongside former Trump administration officials. Donald has previously said that he plans to get rid of the Department of Education and let each state individually, quote, handle education, which seems to roughly translate to a parents' rights forward agenda where some states will learn about slavery and others will learn about the white man's burden. For NATO ambassador, Donald's choice is Matthew Whitaker, whose name you may recall from when he briefly served as acting attorney general at the end of Donald's first term. Similar to Russ Vought, Whitaker has also said that judges should have a, quote, biblical view, and that he would not support secular judicial nominees. Speaking of Donald's nominees who walk in the ways of the Lord, I know you must be dying to hear the results of the House Ethics Committee meeting yesterday, where there was reportedly no decision on whether they would release the results of their investigation into Matt Gaetz, which suggests that in reality they decided not to release it, because it has the same effect anyway. Regardless of what they're doing, the public is still learning about the report in bits and pieces. The committee has reportedly obtained records that show he paid over $10,000 for sex to 2 women who testified to the committee. The payments were made across 27 PayPal and Venmo transfers between July 2017 and January 2019. You can see why Donald likes the guy so much. And as Donald is lobbying Republican senators to confirm Gaetz as Attorney General, he is also demanding that they block any more judicial appointments of Joe Biden's nominees. He wrote on Truth Social that the Democrats are, quote, trying to stack the courts with radical left judges on their way out the door by following the completely normal procedure, and that Republican senators need to show up and hold the line. No judges confirmed before Inauguration Day. And as sure as a minute is 60 seconds, Senate Republicans dragged out votes for hours this week to slow judicial appointments, though Democrats say they may work through the weekends and Christmas in order to confirm as many judges as possible. Look at that dedication to the cause. At least no one has to worry that Ted Cruz would be willing to skip his vacay. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has begun receiving intelligence briefings, as is standard for presidents-elect since 1952. But you know what is not standard? The way in which the Trump transition team has actually been carrying out the transfer of power, by essentially cutting out the Government Services Agency, which formally processes the handover of leadership. The transition team has reportedly yet to set foot inside a federal office, and Trump has cut out the State Department, with its secure phone lines and official interpreters, from all his calls with foreign heads of state. They have also declined to let the FBI background check or vet their appointees for national security threats in order to issue security clearances, and they've declined to have staffers sign required ethics pledges. I don't really think those are going to be a thing anymore. The other big drama taking over Congress right now is that House Speaker Mike Johnson issued a rule change yesterday that transgender individuals would not be allowed into restroom facilities in the Capitol or in House office buildings that do not correspond to their sex assigned at birth, a move which is directly aimed at Representative-elect Sarah McBride, the soon-to-be Democratic Congresswoman from Delaware. In reality, every congressperson's office has its own private restroom, and there are also unisex bathrooms throughout the Capitol, so you can see why this was an issue of national importance. And while eggs are still so expensive, Speaker Johnson, where are our priorities? And finally for today, Pew Research Center released a very interesting report on Americans' news consumption habits earlier this week. They found that 21% of Americans and 37% of adults under 30 regularly get news from social media news influencers, which are statistically most likely to be found on X, In the past news cycle, a clear majority, 63% of news influencers are men, and 27% of news influencers identified as Republican, conservative, or pro-Trump, while 21% of news influencers identified as Democratic, liberal, or pro-Harris. More than 3/4 of news influencers have no affiliation or background working with a news organization, and those who are, they are less likely to express a clear political orientation or identify with specific values or identities. I think this play is about us.